What if you could take mealtime insulin without a single injection? No syringes, no pens, no insulin pump tubing. Just this little patch sitting on your skin, ready when you are. These last 30 days, I've been wearing the CeQur Simplicity insulin patch. It wasn't love at first sight, but it really grew on me. From kayaking and hiking to flying cross country, I put this thing to the test. In this review, I'll share what it's like to use it, how it compares to pens and insulin pumps, and whether it might be a good option for you. I'm fairly certain not a lot of people know about CeQur, despite it being FDA cleared in 2010 and commercially available in the US since 2021. So let me start out by showing it. This is the device. It has no electronics. I think the best way to explain it is that it's like having a rapid-acting, so a mealtime insulin pen on your body. You can wear it for up to 4 days, which was recently extended from 3 to 4 days following updated FDA clearance in the early 2024. And it delivers insulin in 2-unit increments when you push both sides of these buttons at the same time. For safety, just clicking on one won't do anything. I'll show you how to fill one and set it up a little later, but now at least you have an idea of what the device looks like. The 2-unit increments can seem a little random, and I don't know why they chose that. So I decided to ask the CEO of CeQur, and I have included that interview at the end of this video. You can wear it anywhere you'd usually inject insulin. So of course, I tried all of those placements. I was pretty certain that I'd prefer the arm placement, but as it turns out, that was kind of awkward reaching for the device every time I wanted to give myself insulin. Same thing for lower back placement. I preferred wearing it on my abdomen, and my second favorite placement was on my thigh. I found that when I wore it on my abdomen, I forgot I was wearing it, and it was really easy to give myself an insulin dose. Also with the thigh, I thought it'd be a little bit awkward and hard to give doses when wearing, for example, like tight jeans, but it turned out to not be a problem at all. Every 4 days, you fill a new patch with insulin. I drew the insulin from my insulin cartridges, as that is all I have. I use Novolog U100, but the patch can also be used with Humalog U100. After getting the device ready, you have to fill it with 100 to 200 units of room temperature insulin. So this is important. It won't work if you fill it with less insulin, and it can jam up if the insulin is too cold. If there's a small air bubble, you can get that out by clicking the buttons. How much insulin is needed for priming will depend on the person, but the updated priming guidance reduces it from the 20-unit prime they originally had. I did not teach myself how to do this. I received 2 online training sessions. The first one took around 30 minutes, and the next one took, I think, around 10 minutes, or however long it took me to get that second patch on. And you can get as many training sessions as you need. If it takes you 5 training sessions or more with a CeQur trainer to feel comfortable applying the patch on your own, then you can have that. So when the device is filled, you use a reusable inserter to insert the patch. It's recommended that you use 2 alcohol swabs before inserting it. So that's what I did. Finally, you pull out the needle because that does not stay in the body. All that stays on the skin is the patch. And under the skin, there's this little soft plastic cannula. See that here? That means that if the patch falls off, you cannot reattach it because this little cannula is soft and bendy. And I didn't feel it at all. It's not like having a splinter. Even when sleeping on it, it didn't bother me. I will say it was a little bit sore at first after inserting it, but that quickly went away. I didn't see any bleeding either when inserting the patches. The only thing I saw was a tiny bit of blood when I took one patch off my thigh. And I was actually really impressed with how well this patch stuck to my skin. Some even stuck a little bit aggressively, meaning that they were really hard to get off. And I put these patches to the test. I kayaked, I swam, and I hiked a lot, and none of them fell off. They actually stuck so well that I had to use lotion or body oil to get them off without any discomfort. We're all different. And of course, there's a risk that it might not stick as well to your skin as it does to mine. If the device falls off or if it malfunctions, you can contact the CeQur Care team and they can help you troubleshoot or get your replacement if needed. As I said up front, this was not love at first sight, but this device really grew on me. First of all, I actually didn't think I'd be using it that much since it only gives 2-unit increments. But it turned out that most of my insulin injections got replaced by just that little click on the CeQur patch. To that also comes that the first 2 weeks of this experiment, I was on vacation and I was probably eating a little bit more carbohydrates than I usually do. And since it traveled with me, I can also confirm that you can take it through the airport scanners, no problem. Since there are no electronics, no Bluetooth or anything like that, The CeQur patch can't track your insulin doses. I tracked all of that in my InPen app. That way I could still see my active insulin on board and my analytics. And overall, not having to pull out my insulin pen before every injection turned out to be incredibly convenient. Just being able to dose through my clothing without having to find my pen, find a needle, do a prime, maybe saved me 20 seconds per injection, but it was just so convenient. So the 2-unit increments I can live with. I would rather have 1-unit increments or half unit increments. And I think if this was a 1-unit increment device, I'd probably be asking my doctor for a prescription so I could completely switch over. But the major downside for me when it comes to this device is a minimum fill of 100 units. I don't use that much insulin in 4 days. Most of the patches, I'd be wasting 25 to 50 units if I filled it with 100 units of insulin. And you should not pull the insulin out of the patches. It's not FDA approved, and it might not maintain the chemical stability of the insulin. And it most likely won't be sterile. I only did this to show you how much insulin is left. If only it was a 6-day device instead of a 4-day device, I wouldn't be wasting all of this insulin. So right now, this is not the right device for me. But I do think it can be a brilliant solution if you're 21 or older, because that's what it's approved for. If you don't want an insulin pump, which is the case for me, and if you don't want to do manual daily injections. If you're uncomfortable doing insulin injections, one patch filled with 100 units of insulin could potentially save you 50 injections over 4 days if we assume 6 injections a day of 4 units. Before we get into the interview with the CEO of CeQur, Brad Paddock, I want to dig a little bit deeper into the question of CeQur versus an insulin pump. Because when I posted about my experience on social media, a lot of people ask me, why don't you just get an insulin pump? I think they're very different devices, and I think they serve very different needs. Could a CeQur insulin patch be a pathway to get on an insulin pump? Sure. But I think there's also a large group of people, myself included, where an insulin pump is not the right solution. Insulin pumps deliver rapid-acting insulin 24/7. It's both basal and bolus, so it acts as background insulin as well as for meals and corrections. CeQur is only for meals and corrections. So if you're on MDI, so multiple daily injections like me, you still have to inject long-acting insulin. I tried an insulin pump, and for me, having rapid-acting insulin going 24/7 was a lot of work, and I was not rewarded with better blood sugar management. Don't get me wrong, I love insulin pumps for a lot of people, but my issue is that I'm very active and my days are hardly ever the same. When you're active or when you just go for a walk, rapid-acting insulin could get hypercharged, which increases the risk of low blood sugar. So for me, that meant that I constantly had to do exercise mode. I had to put the pump, I had to suspend the pump or do temp basal rates. It was just a lot of work to not go low all the time, and it just wasn't worth it for me. Somebody also asked, why don't you just get an Omnipod, so that's a tubeless patch pump, and then set the basal rate to 0. And they're right. It would be doing basically the same as a CeQur patch. It would allow me for more flexible insulin doses, and it only requires a minimum of 85 units to start the pump. However, it's almost double as high as a CeQur patch, and it's only approved for 3 days. So there are definitely upsides and downsides to both. I think the CeQur Simplicity patch can be a great option for those who do not want rapid-acting insulin going 24/7, or maybe who only need to take mealtime insulin doses. And I think it's important here to remember this is an option. And when it comes to diabetes management, I think it's so important that we have options. We're not all the same. And I really don't think we're all going to be successful in managing our diabetes the same way. And with that, let's jump to the interview with the CEO of CeQur, Brad Paddock. Because after wearing this device for a month, I did have some questions, such as, why 2 units? What does a device development plan look like? Could we see a 1-unit device down the pipeline? And also a little bit about insurance coverage. And after that, I'll talk a little bit more about pricing. I am so glad you're here and willing to answer some questions from me and the viewers. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Christelle.
You bet. So I've been trying out the CeQur patch. Very excited about it. There's some questions that kind of came up while trying it, and I'm very, very happy that you're here to answer some of those. But first, why don't you give us sort of an idea of who is the CeQur patch for? Who did you have in mind when this product was developed?
Yeah, so the product itself was developed by some engineers out of Seattle, Washington back in 2008. This product's had a bit of a journey. It was a product acquired by Johnson & Johnson. They were about to bring it to market. They decided to get out of the diabetes business. So long story short, we sort of adopted this technology. But if you go back to when sort of it was originated, it was really designed for anybody that uses a pen or syringe today to deliver insulin. That was sort of the original concept. Is there's a problem. The problem is in 1921, the medicine was available to treat people with diabetes, insulin, right? It became available over 100 years ago. And yet all these other things have been created, all these other drugs and things have been created because why? Because people don't take their insulin when they're supposed to, right? And so the idea here was let's make it easier for people to take their insulin. And if we can solve that problem, we're helping a lot of people with diabetes. It's that broad. It's that broad. It's literally anybody that's taking bolus insulin is somebody that we think about as a target for our product.
Nice. And you currently have, what is it? I think I saw online around 6,000 users in the US. Is that still the number, or have we sort of?
Yeah, it's probably approaching 7,000 now. Yeah.
Okay, so you do have a user base already.
Yeah.
And it's been on the market for a while, right? It's been on the market for a few years.
It has. We really sort of had the first patients roughly in 2022-ish. So it's been 3 years.
Yeah.
But, we're a small startup. So in those early years, we could hardly make enough product even for the few hundred patients that we had. So we had to build the manufacturing capability. You've got to be able to make, literally millions of these units. And the only way you can do that is through automated manufacturing. And so we've just completed a very large automated manufacturing facility, which now gives us the ability to go out and promote the product so that we can actually supply it to patients.
Okay, so the product is in place, you're ready to productize it more broadly. So some of the questions that came up when I was talking about the CeQur patch, on social media, and one of the things that I kind of also was wondering, why 2 units? Because when you click those 2 buttons, you get 2 units of insulin delivered. Why 2? Why not 1.5 or 3 or 4 or 1?
So from my understanding of how that was originally conceived is that they looked at the people that take insulin today and what was the number that would cover the majority, the largest segment of the market. So obviously the type 2 market is considerably larger than the type 1 market. So that was sort of the starting place, was let's try to make it a bit more focused on type 2. Type 2 patients tend to take more insulin than type 1. So the 2 unit was sort of what was landed on as the first offering that would cover the broadest number of patients in the type 2 space.
So first offering, does that mean that we're going to see a 1 unit or a half unit increment?
So the short answer is yes. This is our first offering, and we expect to bring other variations of the product to market, both in terms of lower unit dosing. So as you mentioned, would a 1 unit make sense? Would a half unit make sense? So that's one part of the equation. The other is how long you wear it. So originally it was a 3-day device. We took it to a 4-day device, and we're now looking to see how much further we can push that, right? So wouldn't it be great if you could wear it for a week instead of only 3 days?
Because one of the things I did run into was that a minimum fill for this patch is 100 and it goes up to 200. I wasn't not quite using 100 units of mealtime insulin in 4 days. So is the goal then, are you looking at extending the product so it lasts longer on body, more time to spend that 100 unit? Or are you looking at maybe a smaller reservoir or sort of changes to the form factor of it?
Yeah. So one of the interesting things about a product like this, as I mentioned, is the manufacturing. So our manufacturing line is a $150 million investment, just to put that in perspective. The manufacturing line works with the current form factor. So we will work within the boundaries of the current form factor for this product. There are next gen versions that may have a different form factor, but would also require a different manufacturing line. So, again, as a small company, we've got to sort of crawl, then walk, then run. But I think over the next 5+ years, you'll see this. We hope that we will actually eliminate pens and syringes completely. Like those will be yesterday's news, right? The insulin pen was developed in 1985, and nothing's really changed in all these years after that. Sometimes we'll ask a doctor, if all your patients were on CeQur Simplicity And I showed up and I said, hey, I've got this great new product. It's called an insulin. And you carry it in a little pouch with needles and alcohol swabs. You go to the bathroom. You got to find a private place to use my product. I know you don't have to do that with CeQur Simplicity. And you do have to inject yourself. I know you don't have to do that with CeQur Simplicity. If you actually reverse in your mind and think about it that way, you think, well, gosh, why on earth would anybody be using an insulin pen anymore with this product? So that's our long-term hope. But we do need to create variations of the product to meet the needs of all the patients that are out.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. So when we're talking about that, so the form factor is one thing. The other thing is sort of how smart is it, so to say. So there are insulin pens that are very not so smart. And then there's actually insulin pens today that are a little smarter, that has some apps with some bolus calculators or some tracking mechanism. Is that also something that you're looking into, or are you more focused on sort of no-tech patches?
At the moment, we are focused on no-tech patches, and that's very deliberate. I think the AID pump technology is phenomenal. I mean, I think it's incredible what people have been able to do with that technology. And frankly, if I had a family member that had diabetes, I would strongly recommend and have them consider an AID technology. If we begin to make ours techie, I don't want anybody to choose our product because it's an inferior pump or I don't want to. That's not our pay. If somebody is a good candidate for a pump, by all means, it's incredible technology and they should go down that road. What we know is that 60% of people with type 1 diabetes are choosing not to be on it. So more than 50% of the market, for various reasons, are saying, I don't want the form factor, the complexity, all those things. And so we want to serve that population. And then in type 2, it's 5% on pumps and 95% not on pumps. So we really are positioning ourselves as the alternative to pens and encouraging people to go onto pumps if that's what will work for them.
That makes sense. So yeah, but definitely, so AIDs are automated insulin delivery. It is one thing. I think one of the questions that I also got was, well, how about a little Bluetooth? That's just sort of Bluetooth, hey, you've taken 2 units or whatever to an app.
Yeah.
Or something a little bit on the simpler side.
So we've actually developed that.
Okay.
It's not complicated to develop. I think it's possible that that's a feature we could add moving forward. But back to the manufacturing. Complicates the manufacturing, so we gotta walk before we run. As well, I want to make sure that we are well established in the market for our position in the market, and then I want to offer that feature to patients that want that feature. Because some of the feedback we get from patients is, you know what I like about this product? It doesn't record what I'm doing. Like, I get to live in my own little world. I get to do it how I want to do it. I'm free. It's not being recorded. It's not connected. I'm in control. So there's something about that I think we also need to better understand and appreciate. And it may be, some patients will want it and some patients won't.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's fair. I mean, it's all about choice, right? It is. And this is also why I love talking to someone like you and some of the other different device manufacturers, because it's all about choice. When you talk about market, so I believe the CeQur Simplicity it was FDA approved in 2010, right? CE marked in 2012. So when you talk about the market, it's only commercially available in the US right now, right?
Correct.
So we're talking about the US. Is it going to go international as well, or is that something where you...
It will at some point. We're very focused on the U.S. market at the moment. It'll be several years before.
So talking a little bit more about access. What is your overall access? So if people want to try this out, are you covered by a lot of insurance plan? How about Medicare Part D and state Medicaid, stuff like that? Do people have to pay cash?
So our access has actually been pretty good. We've been very fortunate that the payer community understands that people are not terribly compliant with pens and syringes. So they understand the core problem and they understand that our product can solve that problem. So we've had a good response, but it takes time. Today, 83% of every prescription that's written gets covered. So across all lines of insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, and commercials. At the get-go, 83% get covered. The monthly copay is typically in the $40 to $50 range. A third of our patients actually have a $0 copay. The reason for that is our product is classified by the FDA as a diabetes supply, and a lot of employers will cover diabetes supplies at a $0 copay. So again, it's very dependent on somebody's insurance. We are covered by Medicare Part D. In some parts of the country, it's a very low copay. In other parts of the country, it's still a very high copay, and we're working through those variances. And then I think we now have Medicaid coverage in about 18 states, one of which is California, which is Medi-Cal, which is over 35 million people in California have Medi-Cal. We're not all the way home, but we've made a lot of really good progress, and the chances are coverage is going to be there. And if somebody struggles with coverage, I would encourage them to call the 1-800 number and speak to our team, because more than times than not, we can find a way to help them get coverage if they're struggling with it. There's sometimes the pharmacy's out of network, or sometimes we need to make an appeal, or it may need to require a prior authorization. I mean, there's a number of steps sometimes that we have to go through, and our team is equipped to help patients do that.
Wow, you guys help with the prioritizations and with the appeals as well?
Our team knows how to help. It's usually in collaboration with the physician's office. But yes, we have a motto inside. It's no patient gets left behind. So that's how our internal team thinks. So if somebody calls us and says, I want this product, I think it can help us, we're gonna work really hard to try to help them get it.
Yeah, I think that's on your website as well. If you have commercial insurance, it's not for the government programs, unfortunately, which is none of your fault. Obviously, this is for all. But for commercial insurance, if you have a copay that's more than a certain amount, that you guys can also help out.
We can. If you have commercial insurance, it's essentially available to you today anywhere in the country if you have commercial insurance. And we have a program that ensures that the patient doesn't pay more than $35 a month.
Yeah, and I'll link to that one so that if everyone needs it, they can find it. I think my last question was, if there's some different products now that have like a sort of a try before you buy program, and I believe I saw that on your site as well. That's not what you call it. I know that's kind of the name that I've been using here, but in case that people are curious about it and would like to try it, I believe they still need a prescription, but you do have a program for that. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do. It depends on where you're located and what your insurance is and how to do that. I would just, again, if somebody's interested, I would encourage them to call us, and then we can work with them in their physician's office. We have a really incredible team of highly trained, certified diabetes educators, and they have proven to become a very important part of our company because they really understand the disease state, they understand the patients, they can help the patient even understand if this is the right product for them. And if it's not, they'll tell the patient, you know what? You probably should consider an AID pump, or, people in your situation haven't had great success with our product and here's why. So again, I would just have them reach out. There's a lot of doctors that don't know about CeQur Simplicity yet. So that's again, just because we're still a relatively small company. So sometimes it's tricky if a patient goes into their doctor and says, hey, what do you think about CeQur Simplicity? And the doctor's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. No, you're not a candidate for that because I don't know what you're talking about. Again, our team can help inform the doctor, educate the doctor if they've never prescribed it before, and just be helpful in the process.
Yeah, oh, that's great. Yeah, I think this was the first time my endocrinologist prescribed it. So yeah.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah. So she is very curious. She's looking forward to hearing my feedback as well as her whole team. They're all like, what is this? Very exciting.
Yeah.
So I do think doctors find it interesting, but they just don't necessarily quite know about it yet.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I think you answered all of my questions. Is there anything that you would like to say to the viewers about the product, about your journey, or anything like that?
Yeah, I would just say, I've sort of mentioned it a couple of times here, but I hope you will view our company as a resource to help you. And a lot of people are having a lot of success with this product because it is so simple and so easy to use. If you're a lot of our patients wear CGM today, And I've worn a CGM, and it kind of disappears on your body. You don't really know it's there unless you feel it. And our product is designed to sort of be like that. It's sort of designed to disappear on your body and not have you feel like you're wearing something bulky or big or complicated. And one of the feedback we get from patients is, I just didn't realize how easy it could make it for me to take insulin. So now I'm taking insulin when I'm supposed to, and lo and behold, my A1C is dropped by 2 or 3 percentage points because I'm just taking the medicine that's been available for 100 years. But the other products weren't helping me take my medicine when I need to. So the message is really that simple.
Thank you so much. That's great. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Brad mentioned that they acquired pretty broad insurance coverage. However, whether or not you buy it cash or through your insurance, you still need a prescription from your doctor. As mentioned in the interview, if you have commercial insurance and your copay is higher than $35, CeQur can help out. Unfortunately, this doesn't work if you have Medicaid, Medicare, or other federal programs. If you decide to buy cash without using your insurance, I would look up the prices on GoodRx. Here you can see the prices at your local pharmacies. If you want to try it out before completely committing, you can reach out to the CeQur care team or to your doctor and see if you can get a starter kit.